there lived a woman named Madame Kofi. She owned one of the largest garment factories in the region, where hundreds of people worked long hours to produce colorful fabrics that were sold across the continent. To many, she was a successful businesswoman, but to those who worked under her, she was something much darker, a fierce and feared boss. Madame Kofi had risen to the top through sheer determination, but somewhere along her journey, she had lost her kindness. Her eyes were always sharp with suspicion, and her voice crackled like dry leaves in the wind. She was quick to punish any mistake, no matter how small, and never cared to listen to her workers' concerns. They said she ruled with an iron hand, and no one dared to cross her. Her factory was always filled with tension. Workers were afraid to speak out, and many left the factory each day with aching backs and empty hearts. One of the workers, a young woman named Amina, had been at the factory for over 5 years. She was one of the most skilled seamstresses, but even her talent couldn't protect her from Madame Kesai's wrath. One day, after an order was delayed because of a faulty machine, Madame Kesai stormed into the factory floor, her face twisted with anger. "Who is responsible for this?" she roared, her eyes scanning the room. Amina stepped forward, trembling. "The machine broke down, madam. We tried to fix it, but it needs a mechanic." Madame Kofi glared at her. "Excuses. You are lazy, all of you. If the machine is broken, use your hands. Or are you telling me your fingers are as broken as your spirit?" Amina, with tears brimming in her eyes, looked at her fellow workers. None of them dared to speak. She turned back to Madame Kesai. "We work hard, madam, but we are only human. We cannot do the impossible." "Then maybe you are not fit to work here." Madame Kofi snapped, turning on her heel and storming out, leaving Amina devastated. The workers began to lose hope. Many fell ill from exhaustion, but Madame Kofi refused to offer them any relief. The factory became a place of fear, and the workers whispered of leaving. But Amina, despite her suffering, believed in change. She knew the power of unity. One evening, as the sun set and the factory quieted, Amina gathered a group of workers. She spoke softly but with conviction. "We cannot continue like this. Madame Kofi may be powerful, but together, we are stronger. If we stand up, she will have no choice but to listen." The workers hesitated. They had never dared to confront Madame Kofi. But seeing the fire in Amina's eyes, they slowly nodded in agreement. The next morning, the workers entered the factory as usual, but this time, they did not touch the machines. They stood together in silence, waiting for Madame Kofi. When she arrived and saw the stillness, her face turned red with fury. "What is this?" she screamed. "Why are you not working?" Amina stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "We will not work until you treat us with respect. We are not machines, Madame Kesai. We are human beings. We demand fair treatment, better working conditions, and the dignity we deserve." For a moment, Madame Kofi stood frozen, shocked that anyone would dare challenge her. But as she looked at the faces of her workers, she saw something she had not seen in a long time: strength. They were no longer afraid. The factory remained silent as the two women stared at each other. Finally, Madame Kofi spoke, her voice quieter than usual. "And if I refuse?" Amina did not waver. "Then we will leave. All of us." Madame Kofi looked around the factory, at the workers she had once controlled with fear. She knew that if they left, her business would crumble. She could feel the weight of their unity pressing down on her, forcing her to make a choice. After a long pause, she sighed. "Very well. We will discuss your demands." From that day forward, things began to change. The workers were given better conditions, fair wages, and, most importantly, respect. Madame Kofi, though still strict, learned to listen to her workers and treat them as people, not just tools for her success. Amina's courage had sparked a revolution in the factory, and the tale of how the workers had stood up to their fierce boss spread far and wide. It became a story of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of oppression, unity and courage could bring about change. And though Madame Kofi remained powerful, she was never quite the same. The workers had taught her a lesson she would never forget, that respect is earned, not taken by force.